So as we move past the end of the Clone Wars, one thing that becomes pretty prominent through this period in galactic history are Separatist holdouts and the way the Empire responds to them. So I figured today we could take a closer look at why Separatist holdouts were actually so useful to Emperor Palpatine and sort of the impact they had on the galaxy at this point in history. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So for those of us who do not know, Separatist holdouts are remnants of Separatist supporters still fighting for the Separatist cause even after the formal surrender of the CIS. After the droids shut down, many organic forces still supporting Separatist ideals, and even some reactivated droid forces, would continue fighting against the forces of the Empire for the first few years into the reign of the Empire. And as time went on, they became less and less common, but they were still a pretty prominent feature in galactic politics. So let's talk about how the Empire actually used Separatist holdouts to their advantage. Now, to understand why Separatist holdouts were useful, we first have to talk about what the galaxy thought of the Separatists at this point in history. The galaxy was reeling from the shock of the Clone Wars still. They were scarred by the atrocities committed by both sides, but more publicly the atrocities committed by the CIS. This is one of the reasons why they were so willing to accept the totalitarian regime that the Empire proposed when it rose to power. The specter of war and the darkness that the CIS had represented was still fresh in everyone's minds, which made Separatist supporters a pretty easy scapegoat. You see, the threat of a resurgent CIS was terrifying to the people of the galaxy. They had just seen what rebellion and unrest could lead to on a galactic scale, with this horrific war that shook them all to their core. So it was pretty easy to paint Separatist holdouts as this ultimate evil, those who wanted to plunge the galaxy back into the chaos and confusion of the Clone Wars and lead to just more death and suffering, which made them a really easy scapegoat. The Empire could simply point to any problems present in the galaxy and say, those people are Separatist remnants. Those people still believe in Separatist ideals, regardless of what they really believed. A lot of very early rebel movements, like Saw Gerrera's partisans, were labeled Separatist holdouts or Separatist supporters, which I think is particularly ironic for Saw Gerrera's partisans, because they were founded to fight the Separatist occupation of Onderon, and would go on to fight the Empire. But to the Empire, all of these were simply rebellions, and slapping this big label on them to make them sort of politically deviant was a good political move. Furthermore, none of these Separatist holdouts at this point in time really actually posed a threat to the Empire. They were all relatively small. Major Separatist institutions and major Separatist strongholds, places like Raxus, for example, were easily pacified by the presence of Imperial troops, who were able to simply roll in and enforce their will. The Separatist holdouts tended to be on smaller backwater worlds that maybe were less accepting of the current political environment, or some that had believed that the Separatist surrender was merely a farce. So, as a result, many of these Separatist holdouts were small militia forces that really stood no chance against a battalion of well-trained Imperial clone troopers. But the Empire did have to pitch them as enough of a threat to be able to pass policy changes to counter the supposed threat of a new Separatist uprising. That meant that the Empire had to look incompetent enough against these Separatist holdouts, while crushing the ones that actually posed a significant threat. As a result, most of the Separatist holdouts that were using Separatist military equipment, like battle droids, were classified as a higher threat and engaged more directly, while those Separatist holdouts that were using militia forces were seen as less of a threat, and as such, the battles there were allowed to go on longer to allow them to continue to use Separatist holdouts as a political menace. In this way, even after the end of the Clone Wars, the Separatists continued to be a boogeyman for the galactic population, and would continue to be such all the way through to the Galactic Civil War. I'm sure there was rhetoric in the Imperial Senate accusing the Rebel Alliance of simply being Separatist sympathizers trying to bring back the CIS, even though their name was the Alliance to Restore the Republic, the other side of that conflict. But as we see with a lot of Imperial elements, fear is a very useful tool for the Empire, one that they seem to lean on a lot, and fear of the Separatists and a resurgent Separatist movement was a very prominent motivator within the galaxy. It motivated the people of the galaxy to accept things like the Empire and the totalitarian regime that the Empire represented, the authoritarian policies that the Empire put in place, and the horrible atrocities that the Empire would commit. If you'd like to learn about why the galaxy actually celebrated the rise of the Empire and learn more about the galactic population's feelings about the CIS, I'll leave a link up here to my video on why the galaxy was so accepting of the Imperial authoritarian regime. And I'd like you to let me know down in the comments, if you were a military leader within the Galactic Empire, would you support leaving some of these Separatist holdouts alive to continue to point at them as, look, there's the threat? Or do you think it makes sense to simply snuff them out so you don't have to worry about any of them actually gaining traction? And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover in Star Wars, you can let me know down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.